I got this one wrong. Ole Miss beats Oklahoma 34-26. Honestly, if not for a few dumb things that Ole Miss did, it could have been an even wider margin of victory. I thought Oklahoma was going to dominate this game and win decisively, but instead, it was Ole Miss doing that. The Ole Miss Rebels are one of the more impressive stories of the season. People won't think that way because they were very disappointing last year. And there's also the story of Indiana, the story of BYU, the story of Georgia Tech, of Texas A&M. Before I continue, liking the video, watching the video all the way through, and commenting your thoughts down below are the best ways to support the channel as they help push me into the algorithm, help me to receive a larger paycheck that I can use to reinvest in producing elite analysis for you all. Subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, sharing the video around, and supporting us in other ways that you can find out via the description are other awesome ways to support our operation at College Football with Sam. We are becoming the best. We want to be the best. Thank you all for making that possible. Those are all better stories than Ole Miss. Don't get that mistaken. But that doesn't mean we don't have to pay attention to what Ole Miss is doing this year. They're 7-1, 4-1 in SEC play. They have one of the easiest schedules left probably in the entire country. Oklahoma has one of the toughest schedules left in the country. This was a must-needed win for Oklahoma. It wasn't exactly that for Ole Miss, and yet I think Ole Miss did a good job treating it like a must-win. Kiffin outcoached Venables, both in terms of offensive scheme versus Venables' defensive scheme and play calling, and he also outcoached him in the little things, too. I thought that some of Oklahoma's final series towards the end of the game were expecting Mateer to be an NFL passer, a round one, pick one caliber passer that some thought he was in the preseason. And we've seen through 8 games, Mateer is not that quarterback. Mateer's good. He's a gamer, but he can only operate in specific systems and situations that can help him maximize some of his moxie and talent. He's not someone who is going to carry you to victory. He's not that. Especially when you're behind the chains constantly and when you're behind the 8 ball. And that's what Oklahoma was against Ole Miss. From the get-go, Ole Miss was moving the football, and Kewan Lacy, what an underrated pickup in the portal. I wonder if Ole Miss has him last year. I know if they had Judkins last year, they go to the playoff and win a game or two, or maybe they even win it all with Judkins. But if they had Lacy, this version of Lacy, last year, how much different is the season? How do we reflect on that season differently? Because I view Ole Miss's team last year as a colossal failure. That is one of the better what-if stories of college football. If Ole Miss beats Florida, or they beat Kentucky, or they beat LSU, all of those were one-score losses. If they win 1 or 2 of those close games, what do they do in the postseason? Because they would have made it at 10-2 with how good they were metrically and analytically. I think that they could have done damage or even won it all last year if they just get to the postseason. But we'll never know. We'll never know. And they weren't better than Georgia with Beck at the end of the year, or Ohio State especially, or even better than Texas or Penn State. They were probably similar to Oregon. But with some of the weapons they had, the non-negotiable that was their defensive line, woof. And they do not have any of those players, D-line or defense, that they did last year. Defense is exponentially worse. They don't have as talented of a QB. I think this Ole Miss team is worse than last year's in just about every way except for maybe the receivers. And definitely running back is superior. Offensive line's probably similar too. But for Ole Miss to be in this position where they're inching close to being a playoff lock, and yet they are less talented than they were last year, that is reflected well on the coaching staff. To be in this position and to win in this way, and then to compete with Georgia on the road last week, that reflects well on the coaching staff, on Lane Kiffin, on Charlie Weiss Jr., on Pete Golding, on their assistant coaches. Ole Miss consistently ran the ball better. I know Oklahoma won in rushing yards overall, but that was because of a long run with broken tackles that was more on Ole Miss's defense than Oklahoma's offense. They put up over 400 yards and 32 offensive points, not counting the safety. That was the one good thing Pete Golding's defense did all day, was that safety. And man, that was a game changer. They put up 431 total yards and a season record amount of points. Oklahoma surrendered season highs on defense all across the board. Where does Oklahoma go from here? Well, that is a good question because they have to travel to Tennessee this Saturday. That's going to be a tough out, especially after what Ole Miss showed teams can do to Oklahoma's defense. This is not a defense that is Ohio State caliber or Indiana caliber or Texas Tech caliber. It's probably not even Oregon caliber. It's definitely not Texas caliber, Florida caliber when Florida still cared about football, etc. This is a defense that's top 10, but after this Saturday, I'm pulling it back from being top 5. Because while Ole Miss's offense is good, and it is schematically sound, it's schematically brilliant, it's well coached, and Trinidad Chambliss is a gamer. He is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in America. Didn't say one of the best, because I do think he's talent limited, and the Georgia game showed that. But he is very efficient. He plays to his ceiling on almost an every down basis, and that is very impressive. And not that his ceiling is very low. I mean, some of the throws he makes where he can zip it into tight pockets, where he puts it in a position towards the boundary, towards the sidelines where only his receiver can get it, to out-angle with throws the Oklahoma defense and corners, that's impressive stuff. I mean, he's been well coached and developed carefully by that Ole Miss staff. But as where Oklahoma goes, I don't know where they go. I mean, after yesterday, their playoff hopes are in jeopardy. They have to win out or win the remaining games on their schedule -1 in order to be in the playoffs. So that means you have to beat Tennessee, Missouri, and LSU, because Alabama's the least likely win. So you sell out for Tennessee, Missouri, and LSU, your easiest 3 games, and the Alabama game just is what it is. Not saying they can't win that game, but that's a very tall task to go into Bryant-Denny to travel to Tuscaloosa and beat that caliber of team. That's one of the best teams in America. There's a reason why they're the favorites to win the SEC and third in odds to win the national championship, despite having a tough schedule and having one loss on their plate already, and a pretty bad loss to Florida State at that. Oklahoma's offense is limited, and we've known this really since their game against Michigan, where they had several chances to put it away and couldn't. And their defense is limited too after yesterday. I mean, Ole Miss putting up 34 points, 32 of which were on offense, and I would argue the only reason Oklahoma was in the game, in hindsight, was in that third quarter before Tate Sandell made that 42-yard field goal. I think Ole Miss ran a trick play or a fake field goal, or it was a 4th and 1, and maybe they tried to run an offensive play. I didn't see exactly what it was. I just saw that Oklahoma tackled the player behind the line of scrimmage. What are you doing there? I mean, you just spotted Oklahoma guaranteed points. Punt the ball away. Your defense has been playing okay enough, and Oklahoma's offense has been playing poorly enough to where you should be able to get the ball back and extend your lead. And for whatever reason there, Kiffin either got too cute or didn't trust his defense. The latter would be understandable, but that deep in your own territory, probably not against that caliber of defense. And, well, the play gets blown up and Oklahoma gets back into the game. Oklahoma is a good team, but are they a great team? No. There is a chance they could collapse here and even possibly lose out. I don't think that will happen, especially with that LSU game and with the news about Missouri and Bo Pribula. And look, Tennessee has their weaknesses and limitations, but still, a season that at one point was talked about as a potential SEC championship or college football playoff season when they were 5-0 or even when they were 6-1. Those expectations are now in jeopardy. And I think that Oklahoma and their fans have to remember that preseason, winning 8 or 9 games was fantastic with that schedule, and that is a good thing if they end up winning that many games. For Ole Miss, we've already talked about it, but they stand at 7-1. Their only loss is to a Georgia team who I think at this point is going to win out. If they lose to anyone, it's going to be to Georgia Tech. So they'll win out in the SEC. If one of Alabama or A&M fall, there's a pathway for them to reach Atlanta, and they're probably a college football playoff lock at this point. Georgia is. Ole Miss only losing to that team by 8 and leading them for parts of the game, and your remaining schedule is a defeated, battered South Carolina team at home, the Citadel, Florida at home, who fired their coach, and a Mississippi State team that just cannot win an SEC game to save their life. Mississippi State isn't a guaranteed win. The other three, I would say, are. And with the win over Oklahoma, over LSU, I know those wins at the end of the year will not look as pretty as they did at the time, but a 10-2 Ole Miss likely gets in at this point, and an 11-1 Ole Miss is certainly in with a home college football playoff game in Oxford, which would be crazy. A credit to Lane Kiffin. This is his best coach team, I would say, at Ole Miss, and the defense is limited, especially in terms of tackling and stopping the run. It's a bad unit there. It's Pete Golding's worst unit at Ole Miss, and probably his worst unit as a D coordinator in a while. But this offense with Chambliss and Lacy and Caden Lee and DeJon Stribling and Harrison Wallace, and of course their tight end, Daquan Wright, it's an incredible unit, and it's going to keep Ole Miss in likely any game against any caliber of opponent. So fantastic win for Ole Miss and the Rebels. They have a lot to look forward to, and they can probably get a lot of rest and try new things and experiment and try to improve over these next few weeks with the schedule they have. For Oklahoma, they just have to survive. They have to find a way to earn a few more wins, and if they reach 8-4, I would say the season is a success. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment your analysis and thoughts down below so I can reciprocate my thoughts with you in the comment section, and check out anything on these end screens that are up here. Whether it's a recommended video or playlists for teams that I'm talking about in a preview, prediction, or a reaction, make sure to hit the notification bell on those, scroll through them, and watch any suggested videos if you are interested. Thank you for helping College Football with Sam become the best and the biggest college football brand and channel on YouTube and other social media platforms. We will reach that one day because of your support.